Urban mobility, acknowledging public transportation as a third space. So, first off, starting with what is urban mobility and why it is important. So, the definition of urban mobility is that it emphasizes the importance of acknowledging streets as public spaces and how they should serve the needs of all users. So, that can be pedestrians, cyclists, drivers, pretty much anyone who uses the streets on a day to day basis. So it's important because it calls for creating better streets by prioritizing safety, sustainability, and accessibility, as well as comfort. Also, by focusing on reforming transportation systems, it minimizes the negative environmental impact of transportation systems we see today. So, for example, if we prioritize public transportation, we'll see less clogging up of like traffic on the streets and less carbon emissions going into the air. Next slide. Who does it affect? So it affects mainly these three communities. However, everyone is technically impacted in a certain way, which I will get more into later on in the slides. So starting off with lower income class, it becomes increasingly more inconvenient to take the public transportation system when traveling to lower income communities, which is unjust, seeing how these are the people who value public transportation the most due to its affordability. So it's kind of like an opposite reaction kind of thing because the people who need public transportation the most have the least amount of access to public transportation, which is like, how does that work, you know? So next, moving on to by POC groups, unfortunately, many systems within the United States are designed to work against these specific communities within this current socio-political and economic climate. By POC individuals experience intersectionality across several issues. The transportation system is one of them. So everything is connected within our society. So what affects one thing also affects another thing, and transportation is aligned within all of that. Alrighty. Lastly, moving on to unemployed individuals. So several people are unemployed due to unreliable and inaccessible transportation to get to a job or for job interviews. So that being said, the more public transportation access that we have, and the more sustainable that, more accessible, more reliable public transportation that we have, it opens the door for more job opportunities for people to go to jobs and get interviews. But not only that, by creating these new bus stops, these new train stations, all that, people need to work to build that. And then once it's all done being built, there's going to need to be people who are running these systems, these trains, these everything. So it's it's really important because everything's connected, and not only will it help these unemployed individuals, it'll help the economy in general, but it opens up a lot more opportunities than one would originally think. So next, how to call for action. So, number one, demand for policy reforms. Several policy changes can be made to improve the public transportation systems. This ranges from reallocating funding, legislative actions, and improving the service slash frequency of public transportation. Next, peaceful protests and boycotts, protesting outside local official offices, pleading for action, refraining from using public transportation to show a collective need for change. Issues like this require collaborative effort. It is what makes a true difference. Not one thing can be done on your own, you know? Next, promoting public engagement on the issue, using social media platforms to assist in spreading the message of urban mobility and how to make sustainable public transportation accessible to all communities slash individuals. For example, creating educational collage posts that are not only informative but also convenient to broadcast. So finally, moving on to the final key takeaways as to why this would be a good step for this nonprofit to take on. So, number one, there are valuable strategies for improving urban streets to create more vibrant, accessible, and safe public spaces. Treating public transportation as a shared third space is one of them. While this issue directly impacts certain communities, the reform of public transportation systems is beneficial for all communities, even though it may seem like something that doesn't affect a certain specific, even though it may seem like something doesn't concern a specific group or individual, it typically does. So by that I mean, everything's like I've been saying, everything's connected. So you might think that, oh, I'm fine with how public transportation is now. It doesn't really affect me. It doesn't really affect you in the way that you think, but I can assure you that it does. So, finally, moving on to number three. By focusing on urban mobility and its impact on transit equity, we can promote a more inclusive and sustainable transportation system that serves all residents effectively. So, with that being said, this is my pitch to this nonprofit climate group. So, yeah, thank you. I hope you take it into consideration.